Glenn. My name is Joseph Ober, I'm a recovered alcoholic. Thank you. Yes, I have spoken here before, actually, and being welcome back, right? That's a new thing for us, as former drinkers, right? An amicable parting, when I was out there drinking meant that you weren't pressing charges. That's how I ran that's how I lived my life, just like trying to outrun people and the cops and girlfriends and the bankers and whatnot. Thank God that's not the way it is today. That I'm welcome back places. That I was the guy that you would hide. The fact that you were having a party at your house, like you just you'd want people to know, but not me. Not Joseph, because like something would get broken or on fire or whatever it was. And that's how I used to live. I used to drink. And I was talking with Amy Elizabeth just earlier, just about my early life was pretty emotional as far as like I didn't realize it at the time, but it was just I was wrapped up in self and just a scream waiting for a mouth. My parents were good people. I just for whatever reason, my father came out of the Air Force. My mother kind of like was not so emotionally available. And so I felt very criticized, and I developed this thing. I don't know if you were the term called hypervigilance. It's talked about, the ACOA people, adult children of alcoholics. My parents were not alcoholics, but this concept of like always being, checking the temperature of the room emotionally, right, and making sure that like you were okay and safe, and I was actually that guy that would change the words coming out of my mouth if I wasn't getting the nod from you, right? Because I wanted to just fit in with my family, with my father, etc. If I was sitting on the couch too long, and my father came home, he'd ask me like why I wasn't doing chores or this or that or whatever. Anyway, long story short, I don't want to get into the specifics. The big book says, that I'm supposed to share what I was like, what happened, and what I am like now, not necessarily the circumstances and conditions. In fact, I grew up in New York. Okay, that's kind of relevant, but not really, right? And I came through that home life, and I started to develop coping mechanisms, right? And one of the things that I did, started to pick up books, right? And I enjoyed it. I would stay in my room, read books, one after another, fantasy land, right? Live in my head. And that gave way to video games. Video games later gave way to sports, and then, girls, and then booze, right? The whole thing. There was a progression, but it was all of the same thing, right? To have some sense of ease and comfort, right? And the big book mentions later, on page 61, it's going to say that, that is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of life if only he manages well, right? The reason why the big book puts that in there, at least, why I think so, it's really a wise thing, because as soon as we click off from this meeting, everything you're going to interact with outside of this meeting is going to basically be on board with that idea that you need to manage well in order to get happiness in life. Did anybody, get that message growing up? You have to have a better resume. You have to have a better chat with the girls in order to, get married. You have to have a better, degree on the wall to have respect, whatever it is, right? And the big book identifies that as a delusion. The reason why is I bought into that delusion. I bought into that delusion, and I pursued it with vigor, right? And I went through college. I discovered alcohol, I was 17 at the time, June 13th, 1986. It was the last day of classes of my high school. And I was a very nervous, nerdy kid. I had been skipped a grade, and I was 2 grades ahead in math, whatever. And I had a really terrible haircut, and like I was like paralytically shy. Anyway, when I had my first drink, it was like it was like everything went from black and white to color, like the Wizard of Oz, right? And I didn't drink in high school. I wasn't one of those people, you guys maybe have different stories or whatever. If I had, forget about it. There's no way I would have made it through high school. I would have latched onto that or whatever. Once I could be released from the bonds of being wrapped up in self, just by drinking something, it would have been a mess. Anyway, God in his wisdom waited until, after high school. So then, I made it to college, and I ran through that, and I wound up within 5 years getting 2 degrees, and I did well in college. I was always like smart. I naturally gifted intelligence-wise, but drinking really did interfere with things. like showing up in classes. We were reading Bill's story last night, a book study that I'm involved with. And I was remembering, because Bill says, one time he was, too drunk to even, write one of his tests. And I was saying to the people that we were learning with, right, like, who would think that you'd be better drunk taking a test than you would be sober, right? But we do think like that. Who thinks that you might be better on a job interview if you had a couple of shots? I do, right? And it's happened to me, right? My brain tells me I'm going to be a little bit nervous on this job interview and it's a really big deal. So I better level out. So I'll have a couple of shots, right? So I take a couple of shots. And then the next thing it says, now that you have a couple of shots in you, he's probably going to smell whiskey on your breath. So you better reschedule the job interview, right? Okay, the brain, blah, 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 tells me to do stuff. I went and do it. And then the next thing you know, I'm back drinking again, right? That's, you guys seem like you're AA type, so you know about booze, right? I talk in a lot of different circles. I've even given, talks at Cocaine Anonymous, and I never actually purchased cocaine in my entire life, right? But because I focus on the solution. CODA meetings and sexaholic meetings, whatever. I don't identify as sexaholic, but the solution's the same, right? I want to have some ease and comfort. At the beginning of the book, in the doctor's opinion, it identifies an alcoholic as having three things: restless, irritable, and discontented. That's the default state of an alcoholic, right? I wake up, I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. That's my spiritual malady, okay? There's two ways to treat that, right? One is alcohol, and the second is a spiritual experience, right? And so I've ruled out alcohol, okay? So now I have to get myself to a spiritual experience. That's my realization, right? I've been through the process. Like I said, I came in, in 1996 or whatever, and I got through it. But the thing is, that I have to cultivate it. I have to keep the spiritual experience going. I am actually, believe it or not, I believe this is true. After, my 27 years or whatever, it should be more likely that I would take a drink today. Why? Because my brain is in such a position and I have more things going on, right, that I have to keep on my shoulders and more information, and I'm responsible for sponsees, and I have a job, and I have this, and I have that, right? If I don't have a spiritual program that allows me to hold those things up, it will crush me. I've seen that happen. People, there's different marks, like around the 9-month mark, right? Because somebody, goes through rehab. Nobody's going to date a guy in rehab. Well, no, I mean, like, most people wouldn't, but it's going to date a guy in rehab. But people do. But right. So when he gets out of rehab, right? So he doesn't have any responsibilities, right? So he then he gets a job. Okay, not the job. Then he's an apartment, car, girlfriend, right? So around the 9-month mark, if he's not growing spiritually, then his blessings will crush him, right? This is and then like the 5-year mark that people talk about, and then like a 10-year mark, whatever. Anyway, so the thing is that, like, why did I drink in the first place, right? Spiritual malady, a sense of discomfort. When I went to rehab, I was one of the guys that went to rehab, right? One of those places where some of us need to be kept, right? I was warehoused there in downtown Los Angeles. And I was there for 9 months, actually, in a place called Beit Teshuvah. And there was a guy there that came that did H&I. Hospitals and institutions, right, that come to people who can't make it to meetings, right? This guy's name was Sarge. I never found out why that was his name, but and he said, "What are you guys recovering? What are you guys rehabilitating from?" It says rehabilitation on the side of the wall. What are you rehabilitating from? So we raised our hands. Chemical dependence. Heroin. Somebody probably say cocaine, whatever. And he said, "You know what? Alcohol can get out of your body 2 weeks," right? He's like, how long you here? 67 days. He's like, why are you here? You should have been out of here 2 weeks, right? Guy with heroin could be out of 10 days. So the thing is, really, we didn't actually know. But he said, what I am rehabilitating from is an inability to live comfortably in general society. This is what this guy Sarge said to me. Why do I remember that after 27 years and change? Because that's what I struggle with today, an inability to live comfortably in general society, right? Where I can go out and drive my car, and the next thing you know, I'm frustrated with traffic, right? And, that somebody cut me off, And I'm happy about my car until I see somebody with a nicer car, right? And then I'm all bent out of shape and da-da-da, right? You people, you identify with any of this, right? The alcoholism has nothing to do with drinking. It has to do with, a deep-seated belief that like my thoughts and opinions are the way things are, right? I have a off-kilt sense of reality, right? And I mean, we all do. Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for myself experientially, but human beings in general, the big book, when it talks about it, most people don't realize, that when you read through the big book, it makes classifications about people in general, not just alcoholics, right? It says most people want to live by self-propulsion. It's talking about all of humanity. Everybody wants it, right? But then, if we do that, we're coming into conflict with other people. But anyway, we're here because our self-centeredness took us to booze. So let's just hit on a couple of things since I was graciously offered, a decent amount of time by Glenn and you people. I'll just cover a couple of things that you might retain and look at or share with your sponsees, right? So I have this dis-ease, right? Restless, irritable, discontented. My brain tells me, that alcohol will make me feel better. Sometimes I believe it, right? That this is me before program, right? And what happens when I put alcohol in my body? It offsets an allergy. Okay, Dr. Silkworth identified that probably 1 in 7 suffer from this allergy. Okay, an allergic reaction just means that you react differently to a substance or an environment. Okay, like it's an allergic reaction. So when I put alcohol in my body, right, it's different than. But I have 3 sisters. Okay, and each of them, one sister probably drinks like on her birthday 2 drinks, and then like New Year's Eve or something like that. And it doesn't do anything for her. It gives her a little lift and this and that. It doesn't set off any kind of allergic reaction. There's nothing about that. Me, I could have every intention of going to a sports bar, enjoying time with my friends, right? And the next thing you know, I will wake up in Tijuana. Okay. Now, how did I get from here to there? Right? You know what I mean? Like that's because I put alcohol in my body. It set off an allergic reaction. Against my will, I continued, to drink. And then I did all kinds of wacky things or whatever. So the obvious answer, which actually Dr. Silkworth provides, right? If you're a fan of the doctor's opinion, right? He says that the only relief we can suggest is entire abstinence. Great. So now we have a doctor's information, right? So you guys are all cured now because I told you entire abstinence, right? Go be great. What's the problem? The problem is I can't seem to stay away from alcohol. Right? I have the information. The doctor's telling me I should stay away from it, right? If you're allergic to strawberries, don't eat strawberries, right? Okay, I got it. For some reason, alcohol, I'm not able to stay away from. Why? Because the emotional pressures that I myself create drive me that I need something in my life to give me that ease and comfort, right? I'm not okay, right? I wake up in the morning and I'm anxious. I check the newspaper. And like I'm worried about the state of world affairs or whatever. What's going on over there? What are people saying about me? Whatever it is. If you're working in an office politics, this and that, we all have it. Okay. Anyway, but the thing is that that's spiritual disease. Okay. So how do I keep away from a drink? That's what we'll talk about in a second. But I just want to cover something that's like fantastic quote. You guys are big book people. I often tell people, if you want to talk about the big book, bring a lunch. Right? I like talking about it, whatever. It happens to be like, just to go back to like something that we all can reference because we all have opinions and experiences and I'm sure they're all valid and this and that. We share them. When you go back to the book, you kind of, what did those first 100, like experience? They wrote their diary. They put it down for us. They scream out. All those people are dead now. They scream out and they say, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Those are dead people calling to us, right? Yeah, we read it. Did we read How It Works? So not present. I didn't hear, but anyway, in How It Works, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start, right? They're calling to us and telling do it. You guys can do it. Anyway, so on page 24, it says, the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without mental defense against first drink. Okay. So that's the offering. I do not have a defense against first drink. right? So, and I have problems just like everybody else. Why didn't I drink today? Because, by working these steps and applying this program, I have been given a defense against that first drink. It doesn't, I have a clarity that's come to me after my spiritual experience, right? A reordering of my reaction to life. If you guys go back to page 567 about what a spiritual experience is, right? My reaction to life is different. Human beings are going to suffer in 5 major areas. Okay. It's going to be, health, legal, finance, friends and family, and romantic entanglements. Everybody. That's Prince Harry down to the guy who sweeps the floors at Google, right? Everybody's got those same 5 things. And before, when I was drinking, I also had those same 5 things. How I reacted to them was I'd hide from the people I owed money to. I would, cheat on my girlfriends, romantic entanglements. I would turn my back on my family, right? Now, today, right, it's a different story. My reaction to life is different. I still have to pay rent. I still have to interact with friends. I still have to show up at work, blah, blah, blah. But, like today, right? Okay, I had to come to this talk. I was 10 minutes early, right? I generally am early to things, okay? I lead a pretty ordered life. It's not how I was built necessarily. It's just, how do I perceive things? I perceive that Glenn asked me to be here, right? You guys are expecting a speaker. For me to make sure that I'm going to be here with no snags, I try and come early, right? Because there could be a snag this and that. I have trouble logging in. Da, da, da. So now I'm here. That all comes from sobriety. That came from my spiritual experience of seeing things differently. I have a responsibility to this man to show up on time. Now, that's not how I used to conduct my life. In that book study that I was talking about, which I kind of got, I've affiliated with this group called BYOC. It stands for Bring Your Own Coffee. I didn't come through them. I don't really have any affiliation with them other than I went to one of their meetings and they have this mind to take people and put them through the steps within 2 weeks in an orderly fashion. That's their thing. And when I went to one of their meetings, because the person that was running it asked me to, she said, oh, there's a book study. Do you want to take, Joseph, do you want to talk about the book? So I said, okay. So it turns out that like it worked out well. And so there was the next day and the next day and the next day. And I've been doing this with them for 4 weeks. I don't take the people through the steps. I don't do anything about that, but I go and give the book study. And it's at 11 o'clock my time every night for the last 4 weeks. So it's enhanced my program, right? I'm the one that stays sober. Even if nobody gets anything from that, I have this slogan now that I say I get paid either way. It really doesn't matter to me. If you guys take it, great. If you don't, that's also great, right? But the thing is that like getting into last night, we were actually going through Bill's story. And if you read Bill's story, right, at the beginning of the book, the way the book is set up is to kind of like draw you in as a sense of identification. So Bill offers his own story. Bill was like a real jerk, right? From the beginning, the first 5 pages of Bill's story, right? And do you know how many sentences Lois says in the entire Bill story? She's really good Al-Anon. 0. She doesn't say anything. The whole story, right? He goes and he steals from her wallet. She's working at a department store, this and that, right? The whole thing is Bill, right? Anybody who's on this call probably found somebody kind of like that in our lives, right? The person who would like fund our our education in drugs and behavior. So anyway, so Bill was kind of like a jerk, right? He was pursuing money, he was pursuing fame. He felt he had arrived, right? We take the people through the book and we talk about the feelings, right? Because this guy was born in 1895 in New York and fought in World War I. What do I have in common with him, right? If you look at Bill's story and you think how he thought, how he felt, and how he drank, find out that beat for beat, it's my story, right? That I like the feelings that I would get when people would favor me, right? And that he had these things that going on in his head that he thought to himself he's going to conquer, the stock market. Anybody ever have thoughts in their head which had only a tenuous connection to reality? That you were going to be a major star in a film, that you were going to write a novel, right? That you were going to whatever, that you were going to change the face of law, whatever it is that you're going to do, right? It's going on in our head, right? They should actually, if they do a reprinting of the big book, they should really have like a delusion font so we know that like because if you read it, you don't know that it's just him being, delusional. But anyway, all right, Bill suffered from delusion. But that's how he ran his life. Then he had some kind of spiritual experience. And then his entire life was changed over. In the beginning, he threw Lois into into the motorcycle sidecar to go around and look at businesses for Wall Street, right? That's, and Lois doesn't say anything, right? She throws her in the sidecar. And then after a spiritual experience, he throws her in the sidecar again to go out and pass the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an entirely different reordering of his priorities, right? And that goes with what is written on page 63, which is that we were reborn, right? These steps have the ability to take us and give us an entirely new life, right? And I see it. I don't see it in every single person who comes through, right? It depends on how they're coming through and their guidance and their commitment or whatever it is. But the thing is that the first 3 steps are designed to realign us with God. Okay, we're distant from God. Okay, we admit that we're powerless over alcohol, life is manageable, right? I can't do it without him. Okay, I'm out of sorts with God. First 3 steps. Okay, that's going to realign me with God. 4 through 7 is going to realign me with myself. Okay, I'm going to pick up a pen, right? After I realign with God and I'm able to see things with some kind of clarity, then I'm able to do a 4-step. Because if I haven't really done the first 3 steps and gotten out of self, my 4th step is really just going to be a hit list of all the people I hate and how they screwed up my life, right? I mean, if I haven't gotten out of self yet, my 4th step is going to be of no value. I'm just going to write a lot of things that about people that that from my point of view. But if you have done an effective 3rd step, you're reborn, then you start writing on what your character was doing, before you came into the rooms. 4 through 7 is going to, it's going to isolate your character defects, right? They generally center around pride, lust, anger, greed, gluttony, envy, and sloth, right? There are more, right? Those are the things that haunt us. They're things that block us from God, okay? If we can shed those things, if I can shed my pride, if I can shed my anger, right? I will naturally connect with God. Right? You must have all had experiences whether they have children or not. You've seen a little baby, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, right? They don't have any character defects, right? A baby only has 2 fears. One, when it's hungry, it cries, and loud noises. So where did it get all its other fears and anxieties? From us, from society that it was born into. It wasn't a product of its, intelligence. We gave it to him. Right? As soon as they started taking spelling tests and got, an 84, and mom and dad said, you didn't get it perfect, right? They started to understand that, there were gradations and things and this and that and whatever. And when I watch television, I see that when the guy gets the girl, they play good music. And when the guy doesn't get the girl, they play bad music, right? And, we all develop our sense of self about that, right? So but the thing is, that's all kind of bad information that we could step back from and say, I'm a child of God right now. I am, I'm perfect and whole right now. Everything's great, right? There's no reason not to say that, right? And then, our brain kicks in and we start thinking about credit card bills and I should have turned left when I'm right and this and that. And I'm on my 2nd divorce, whatever. Okay. Anyway, but the thing is that we got these 4 through 7. It's going to isolate our character defects. Okay. Sponsor's going to help us with that, or the person we share it with. 6 and 7, we're going to try and get rid of them. And if we are successful in that regard, to the best of our ability, then we start to, connect with God. We're on the God team now. 8 and 9, we reconnect with our fellows, right? So we got connect with God, connect with ourselves, connect with our fellows, right? We built 1 through 9. We're now able to go out and face life successfully, okay? 10, 11, and 12 keeps things going, keeps us clean. Continue to take personal inventory. When we were wrong, promptly admitted it, right? Nobody ever asks, what if you're right? Right? You ever think about that with the 10th step? Continue to take personal inventory. When we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So if I'm right, I don't have to say anything. If an alcoholic who's right is probably even worse than when he's, when you want to browbeat somebody. I'm right. You're doing something wrong, right? In the office place or whatever, you start pointing out people's, failings and this and that. The whole thing is, when I'm running in that mode, I'm wrapped up in self, right? Selfishness, self-centeredness. That's what it tells me, on page 62 is the root of my troubles, right? And if I go back to that, I tell my sponsees, I try and keep it simple, right? For myself, for my sponsees, right? I tell them, like go to page 63. I'm going to read it to you, right? And, you've probably read it before, right? So this is, I'm going to read it as if it's the diary of these people, right? I went down to the basement of the AA archives and I pulled out the diary of the first 100, and I'm going to read what they have to say about their sobriety. It says, when we sincerely took such a position, right? That means that God's going to be the authority in the life based on the page before. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed, right? So these people experience remarkable things. Anybody want to experience remarkable things? Okay, me too, right? So let's find out what they did. We had a new employer, okay? A new employer. So this answers the question, God of our understanding. What the heck does that mean, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to understand God. I don't even understand how the Zoom call is working. How am I going to understand God, right? Yeah, I don't know how my phone works. Does anybody know how a car engine works, right? So give up on the idea of understanding God, right? Just put it aside. But I understand relationships. So the big book offers 4 relationships. It says God's going to be our director, our father, our principal, and an employer. I threw my weight behind the employer model. I like it because I've worked jobs, whatever. Great. God's my employer. Okay. What's he going to do for me? He says, being all powerful, he provided what we needed. Okay. That sounds good, right? Being all powerful, he provided what we needed, right? These are people reporting their experience. This is what they experienced. If we kept close to him and performed his work well. So that tells me if I want to experience that, I have to stay close to him, perform his work well, okay? Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves. This is their reported experience. They stopped, the more they were helping people, the more they were showing up, the more they were taking out the alcoholics to the work, whatever, they less interested in themselves, our little plans and designs. More and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life, right? There's a feeling of self-esteem there. All the stuff that like people, put in these chats about, I'm feeling a low self-esteem and this and that. This is all conquered by these people that just did something simple. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we can contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, we enjoyed peace of mind, right? Who wouldn't want peace of mind, right? Especially when COVID happened and everything, everybody's freaking out, right? Like these people experience peace of mind. Whether it's, I live in Israel, right? My country is currently at war, right? We have sirens, that go off when the missiles are coming in, whatever. Thank God there haven't been one in a while, right? But the thing is, I know I'm going to get taken care of. I live on page 63. I'm going to stay close to him. I'm going to perform his work well. As we felt new power flowing, we enjoyed peace of mind. We discovered we could face life successfully, right? Successfully based on my criteria, right? I'm not going to have the house that you think is good or whatever. I'm going to, I live in the city that I want to, right? I probably only, 25% of all of humanity lives in the city that they really want to, right? Most people are like, the LA people want to live in New York people want to live in LA, right? People in big cities want to live in small cities. I live in the city that I want to, right? I made a conscious decision to move from Los Angeles to Jerusalem. Here's where I live. I attended school. I became a rabbi, this and that. This happened for me, but they're saying that it's successful. This was a product of sobriety, not the fact that I just stopped drinking, right? But I actually said, I want to do these things. And then, it was in line with what God helped me do. And here I am. Right? And these people also had the same thing. They felt new power flow in. They enjoyed peace of mind, faced life successfully, became conscious of his presence, right? That's the thing that, this book talks about a lot. The 11th step, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, right? So let's talk about conscious contact for a second, right? Identifying that God's working in my life, that I have a conscious contact with God. So it looks like all of you guys are sitting down, right? Do you feel your butt in the chair? Can you feel your butt in the chair? Yeah? Anybody raise your hand? Chris, raise your hand if you feel your butt in the chair. There you go. Right. But you didn't until I mentioned it, right? Your brain had screened out things that aren't relevant. Just like that's what the brain does. Screens out things that aren't relevant. If I'm not consciously trying to think about God, it'll screen it out. I'll think that I'm so great. That's why I got this job. I'm so good looking. That's why I got this girl. I'm fantastic. That's why Glenn asked me to speak. My brain will come up with all sorts of bizarre things, right, about why things are happening. When in reality, if I have a conscious contact, I'll say, God put in Glenn's head, that just reach out to Joseph, ask him to speak, this and that, and that's why I'm here, right? It's an entirely different version of reality. That's a conscious contact. How your rent is getting paid, why your kids aren't sick, whatever it is, right? And when you have that conscious contact, then you start to have gratitude, right? That the good things in my life aren't the product of my efforts, right? That's what, again, when you exit this room, you're going to have a whole different story coming from the people that are out there in regular society, right? But the reality is that you turn your will in your life over the care of God, like it says in the third step. Those words are meant, in my opinion, to be taken literally, right? So I do the work and I get the blessings on the back end. It's worked for me. Not everybody's interested in that, right? You get it, I get it with a lot of people. I deliver this message to a lot of people. Some people, are interested in it, but they're not willing to make the sacrifice of self. They said, really, Joseph? Really? That's really you're going to live on that? I said, well, that's what I did, And the ancillary benefit is that I don't want to drink. One thing that you might notice about the steps, I don't know if you ever wondered, right? We all came in here with drinking problems or whatever, drug problems. It doesn't say anywhere in the steps that you're going to stop drinking. Nowhere, right? What it does say, 12th step, it says having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. The intended result of the 12 steps is to catalyze a spiritual experience. If you can catalyze a spiritual experience, the ancillary benefit is you will stop drinking. Why? Because you'll recognize that this substance is poisonous for you. It's ruinous for your life, and you won't engage in it. The same way that you won't sleep with your neighbor's wife. You have that sort of clarity. That's not for me. This isn't for me. If I don't have a spiritual experience, then life is based on utility, meaning that if it's good for me, then it's right. Right. So if I go into your apartment, right, you invite me in, this and that, you go into the back room, I see a $10 bill on the table. I say to him, and I weigh out whether or not you're going to notice that that $10 bill is gone when you come back. I'll take it. Why not? Right. Spiritual experience says that, no, there's a larger picture that I'm in line with. I can't cause damage to you because that it's not that it's not right. Right. It's because we're all part of the same world. Right. The principles that underlie the steps, one of them happens to be love. Right. And it's love in the sense that I take you seriously. The way I looked at things when I was drinking was that you guys were just extras in my television show. I was the main character and you guys were just extras, right? Really didn't have like such a role. It wasn't really so important about you or whatever. So it's like the damage that I caused you and this and that really wasn't, such a big deal. Now that I've revisited that through the steps, I see that you guys really do exist and I have a responsibility to you. So much so that it comes down to things like, when I book an appointment to have coffee with somebody, right? Chris and I are going to have coffee. Okay. And, I say to myself, oh, I have to be ready because it's at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, this and that. Right. And the way I used to be was that I would show up at 12:10 with a really good excuse. Right. Anybody ever lived their life like that? Show up late with a really good excuse, right? A compelling excuse, right? And you'll launch in as soon as you show up, right? Yeah, I had to help the people down at the shelter, right? The blind people, right? That's why I'm late, Chris. I hope you can forgive me, right? But the thing is, I start to revisit how I view reality. And I say, you know what? Chris is sitting there waiting for me. And that's not right for me to just leave him hanging. So therefore, I'm going to show up on time. That's what a spiritual experience really is. It's being connected with the reality that how we treat our children, how we treat our employer, how we treat other people, right? And when I enlarge my life that way, things just sort of work out, right? And that's exactly what living on page 63 means to me. Okay, it's a third step experience. I've had this as of late, since the beginning of 2024. I've been getting like this flood of incoming messages. People hear me speak at meetings or this or that, or they get referred to me. Okay. And like everybody is sending me these messages, and it really boils down to incomplete third step syndrome, right? I'll just say it, I'm not talking about anybody here. I'm talking about people that have, right? Because they'll come to me and they'll say, yeah, I went over to my coworker and I gave him some constructive criticism, and then he got mad at me and called me an asshole, and I hate him. And I said, well, why'd you go over and give him constructive criticism? Well, because he needed to hear it. And I said, where'd you get that information? Who told you that? Was it God? Was it your boss? Or was it you? Oh, and then when they finally hit on the fact that it was my brain, I said, look, that's the most unreliable resource you've got. Like And it says on page 63, it says stay close and performers work well. That doesn't, where does it say go give constructive criticism, right? That I'm being serious about this. So people come with all these troubles and dramas and this and that they themselves created, you know? So anyway, when I live on page 63, you know, I stay in my lane, things work out. But check this out. This is actually what it says. As we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, the hereafter. That's what their experience was, right? You can say that it's a promise and this and that. I live day to day on these notes. I don't have the kind of fears that other people, you know, come and suffer from. It says we were reborn. This is the thing that, you know, like maybe I'm coming to give you a piece of information. I didn't discover this. I think that this is really just the way AA is supposed to be, but I'll try and put it in like something you can wrap your head around. People, when they get to their fourth step, they're all scared, right? Because they have to write bad things about themselves and this and that. The truth is that isn't how it works at all, right? If you're reborn, the English definitions there means that something died. You can't be reborn if something didn't die, right? What died? My old character. Therefore, the character that's picking up the pen and now doing the writing, right, is different than the one that died. I'm writing a story about some other guy. I'm telling you the truth. This is why when I work with my sponsees, I get them clear on this third step. They don't go through a lot of grief and, you know, anxiety about all the stuff that they're writing. They're not that guy. They don't think like that guy. They don't act like that guy, right? Yeah, okay, fine. They look like them. They have the same fingerprint or whatever. But they don't go through the anxious moments, right? And people get through their fourth step, you know, like, but they could see clear. They've been reborn, okay? And that's a huge thing because that way I don't have to suffer with the, you know, and casually, whether it's in AA or outside of AA, right? People say things, oh, I ruined my kid's childhood. That's a heavy thing to, you know. I have a friend actually. I had this exact thing. I heard her speak on a recorded talk, okay? And she said something about she's got a few years sober or whatever, and she said something about how she ruined her kid's childhood and this and that. And I said, you know, you might want to think about that. Like if you had a complete third step experience and you were reborn, that means that you personally now in 2024 weren't the one that were interacting with your kid while you were drunk. You don't have to own that. And I said, if that is the case for you, if you can wrap your head around that, then the promise will come true later on, right? That you'll see that, you know, that you will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. If you can't do that, then you won't be able to have that promise of not regretting the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Anyway, she did it, and you know, now she lives in a different way of mind. But it's just really taking the book and bringing it alive. So then, you know, we get to the third step. We turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, right? So now we're working as his employee. We go through the day, and I say to myself, you know what? If I'm staying closer and performers work well, then he's going to take care of the stuff for me. If I'm going outside of my lane, then I'm landing back on page 62 where it says selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our trouble. So much so that like you see these chats and stuff like that people will like just write stuff that they think, you know, going on in there. Nobody asked them to, you know, they're not getting paid for it. They just decided to write. And I question, I say, you know, like, is that really staying close and performers work well? Right? What's the problem there? The problem there is as soon as they get backlash, somebody challenges them and they get bent out of shape. And then they think their frustrations and this and that, right? They were the one that set the ball rolling, right? And that's what a lot of people are suffering from within AA, having nothing to do with drinking. It's true we may pick up a drink in order to address that fact. Hopefully none of us drink again. You know, I hope I never do. But the thing is that, like, you know, if I focus on that, if I focus on, like, when I wake up in the morning, right, I get out of bed, okay, I wish I could say that I was, you know, the guy that, like, wakes up and, like, birds attend, you know, my shoulders and everything like that, you know, like, it's a glorifying experience and there's rainbows coming through my window. That is not what goes on, right? I wake up and I have to get into the mode of saying, you know what, okay, it's another day. I'm looking forward to it. I serve God, this and that. I send out a bunch of good morning messages. I'm not even kidding about that. You know, I have people that I know and this and that. Yeah, just as a response, you know, like just Chris, can you know me well? Do I wish you a good morning? Yeah, pretty often. Yeah, but it's not so that Chris and I will be buddies. right? I'm not looking to gain his favor, right? I do it because God said stay close and performers work well. One of the things that I do is I try and wish his other peeps, right, a good day. The benefit that I've seen is that later on in the day, people will write back, "Oh, Joseph, thank you so much. How's your day going? This and that." That I feel connected to people. If I was wrapped up in self, I wouldn't see the relevance of that. I've talked with people, right? They've come to me for advice. I told them to try this out, and they say, "Why the heck would I do that? Why would I write to people in the morning? Why would I call somebody up and ask them how they're doing?" Right? This whole thing about outreach calls, right? I don't know what's going on in Tennessee, but I'll just tell you what's going on in Zoom land in my area. Somehow outreach calls have mutated from what it was when I was in 1996. An outreach call meant I would call up Charlotte. "Hi, Charlotte, how you doing? We're in the same home group, this and that. I just wanted to find out how you were doing. Yeah, I just wanted to find out how you were doing, what's going on in your day, da, da, da. Okay, you work in an office. How's that going? Blah, 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 blah." 10, 15-minute call just to see how Charlotte's doing. That is my outreach call. Okay, great. That is not what it means today in 2024. What it means in 2024 is, "Hi, Charlotte, how are you? I want to complain to you for about 10 minutes. Then could you offer a solution that I'm going to ignore?" That's what outreach calls have become now. It's completely wrapped up in self. It's doubling down on the problem, right? But we think we're actually like being smart about it. But there's no trust in God. And that's not what the big book is talking about. We became less and less interested in ourselves, right? So people say, "Oh, do you have time for an outreach call?" I got to tell you, I do have people in my life that I run things by and stuff like that, but it's not like randoms, that I have a God squad. I have 5 people that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like I know that I'm right-handed, and I've given them license to comment on my life. I've pre-given them license. These are people that I actually have said this to. Okay, my friend Nikki, okay? Nikki, I talk to her pretty much every day by text. If you see something going on with me, if you think my thinking is off, or I'm talking to you about something and you tell me that it's something I need to hear, you're totally licensed to do that, right? I need to hear that from you. She says, "Fine, great. I respect her program." She does. She calls me out on stuff. "Joseph, you know what? You need, you owe your sister an apology. You really shouldn't have raised your voice to her." "Really? You think that?" "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Joseph, I mean, like, come on, right? That's not how we roll." "Okay, fine. I make the apology, right? I have a God squad around me. Okay, that's but the incidental of, like, "I really need a meeting, right? Can somebody talk now, right? I need help," right? Those are all like, just we're looking to put out fires, right? That's kind of what things have changed over to. And I'm not going to put Alcoholics Anonymous on trial. I'm just telling you what I've seen. Right? My way and what I do with my sponsees is more about fire prevention. Stay on page 63, get yourself in line, stay in your lane, right? But I had a sponsee that called me up, and he's trying to convince me that his wife's insane, right? Okay, why is your wife insane? "Joseph, my wife, she is crazy," right? Why is your wife crazy? "Okay, because I came home, right, from work, and like normally I show up around 6:30, and I came home at 7:30, and she was freaking out." Okay, right? So I asked him, so his report, this is my sponsee, his reported experience is that his wife's insane, okay? And this is what happened. So I said, "Has this ever happened before?" "Yes, it's happened before." "Has she told you that she doesn't like when you come home late?" "Yes." "Did you call her?" "No." Right? So he set it up, right, so that he was doing whatever he felt like it, with no responsibilities through his wife, who, by the way, I said, I had to tell him this. I said, "You know what, dude? You're only 6 months sober. When you don't show up for an hour, she thinks you're in the morgue," right? That's her reality. Okay? That's not nice, right? So anyway, the thing is that, like, I'm telling him about this, and then he's realizing that he was the guy at fault, right? So we got him through that or whatever. But then I said, anytime you're going to be late, make the call. That is, take close and performers work well. Those are the kind of things we do on page 63. And we don't have to fight the fires, right? We don't have to get life out of control. I don't have to worry about somebody coming up to me today and saying, "You know what? I heard you said something about me, Joseph," right? Da, 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 da. I don't have to worry about that, because I don't gossip about people, right? I'm trust me, I'm not Superman or whatever. I do live on this planet, but I see clearly that, like, I don't want to have to make those sorts of amends, right? It's true that I have been at this, a significant amount of time, But I think it really boils down to like, what's the depth of our spiritual experience? How closely are we aligned with that idea that like God's running the show? And then I'm not coming from a religious perspective. I happen to be, Jewish and a rabbi and whatever. I'm not coming from that kind of thing. But by the way, I don't know if you're aware. We'll just talk about it for a second. How am I doing on time, by the way? I don't want you to just pull the plug in 7 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Weeks, 7 weeks. Anybody got the time? All right.
7 minutes left. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. All right. So if you're talking with sponsees or maybe you've wondered yourself, how does the big book weigh in on the idea of a higher power? Right? What's the guidelines for higher power? And you talk with your sponsees, maybe it's a good idea. I'm actually going to do this workshop tonight. I mean, it kind of happened because a couple of people that have been interacting with this BYOC, they were wondering, like, let's talk about God, like pull out things about the big book from talk about God. But it should come up. Your sponsees should ask you, like Joseph, how do you relate to God? How do you use God in your life? This and that. I have good answers for that person. But let's start at the beginning. It says on page 93, right? If you're going to start talking with your sponsee about God, it says, tell him exactly what happened to you. Stress the spiritual nature freely. If the man be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic. He does not have to agree with your conception of God. Now it's going to offer 3 criteria. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he would be willing to believe in a power greater than himself, and that it be based on spiritual principles. Okay. Beyond that, you can have, whatever you want. That it could be a guy with a beard. It could be a woman. It could be, an entity with 2 faces, neither male nor female, both male nor female. It really doesn't matter. My sponsor, when he took me through the beginning, I didn't grow up religious. I didn't have contact with God growing up or whatever. My sponsor, Robert, when I was in rehab, he took me out and he said, tell me what you would like want, some characteristics about the God that you would like. And I said, I guess he'd be fair. Like, okay, right. You wrote down fair. I said, he'd be all powerful, right? Wrote down all powerful. Said, he'd probably be like caring, nurturing, right? So I got an idea. One of the things I remember this, I said he probably would be funny. I said, I would want a God that would be funny. I'm telling you, from that day forward, there have been so many like funny things that have happened in my presence that I can't explain otherwise. That like somebody who, comes off as being like a real big shot, haughty guy and then slips in the mud right in front of me, right? And I laugh hysterically. Now, I don't think God's up there like making, just zapping the guy to fall in the mud, right? For my back. But I've been privy to a lot of things. I laugh pretty much daily, That's the kind of life I lead. At the beginning of the book, we talked about it, restless, irritable, discontented. That's the default state of the alcoholic. But at the end, page 133 says, happy, joyous, and free, right? That's how I live. Not every second of every day. That is true, right? But when I'm off, right, I recalibrate. I can sense it's off. I'm not being happy, joyous, and free now, right? Something's off, right? And I can go to my friend Chris and I could say, here's what's going on with me. And say, Joseph, you know what? You got something to look at over here. It's a beautiful way of living. I think it was the way that, people are supposed to live, right? But, I mean, all I know is my own story. Bill, actually, if you want to know the real truth, if you read Bill's story, he really thought that like all was going to be utopia, this perfect society. He thought that he's going to sober up an alcoholic and his wife is going to live by spiritual principles. And then the kids are going to want spiritual principles and everybody's going to want spiritual principles. And the next thing you know, the world is utopia. That's what he writes at the end of his story. He literally wrote that. Said most of us feel we need look no further for utopia. Utopia is a fictional perfect society written by Thoreau. We have it right here and with us here now. Each day, my friend's simple talk in our kitchen multiplies itself into a widening circle of peace on earth and goodwill to men. That's what he imagined, right? Bill was a great guy, right? He had his failings and this and that, we all do. But that's what he imagined. He said to himself, this is amazing. I am sober. And bizarrely enough, this is a gift I have to give away to keep, right? I mean, I didn't coin that phrase. You could write it down if you want. It's a gift that he had to give away to keep. And he hammers that point many, many times in his story, right? This is literally what he says. This is Bill's story. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life, Through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink. This is one of only 2 times in the big book that it predicts that somebody will drink as a result of action. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. And if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. And he's not making it up. It's not like he thought real hard about it. And, this is an opinion. This is what he saw. Guy stabbed himself in the neck in his kitchen. Right? Bill tried to sober up 60 guys. None of them got sober. Right? You probably know the story, right? He goes to Lois. He's washing the dishes. And he's like, I don't get these guys, right? Nobody wants to get sober. She's like, but Bill, you stayed sober. And the light bulb went off on his head. He said, oh, the guy who's passing the message stays sober. Oh, I mean, total, transparency. That's why I'm here, right? I have the most likeliness of staying sober out of our crowd, not because of what's going on in our lives, but because I'm actively doing what it says on page 89. It says practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as working with other alcoholics. Right? That's what I'm doing. And that's what you guys do. I mean, I don't know what you do outside of this. I'll probably see you at a meeting or something like that. But the thing is, like if we gear ourselves in that way and we pass it, we get the flow. I'm doing for God, and I don't have to worry about my finances, those 5 areas that I mentioned earlier: finance, legal, health, friends and family, romantic entanglements. I really don't worry about them. I trust me on it. I'm telling you the truth. My employment came to me through a bizarre set of circumstances. I didn't orchestrate. It wasn't because I had a fantastic resume or whatever. It came through a different angle, right? My health, I eat right and stuff like that. But, like health is up to God, right? My friends and family situation, I put out there, right? I'm there for people. People seem to like me or whatever it is. Right? I don't worry about stuff. And my country's a war, like I told you. I mean, like, and trust me, within the people that I move with in society, they do talk about it. Like you got to get on the news and you got to this and you got to that. I said, you know what? I'm good. I don't need to do that. I'm fine. My God's taking care of stuff. I don't go out and preach to them and tell them that they're doing wrong or anything like that. But I refuse to get involved with something that's just going to produce anxiety, and I have no action step involved. So I don't I don't get involved in the news. I don't know if you met those people during COVID that watch TV 24/7. Like I had to know like up to the minute stuff, right? It's just doubling down on anxiety, And I trust that things are going to take care of themselves. So anyway, we talked a lot about about living well, right? And that's the way to not drink, right? Not just not drink, not overspend, right? Like that's the same kind of thing. I've gotten involved with groups now that play this thing called Spiritual Gangsters, which takes a strict reading of the 3rd step, which says, our fellowship should include all who suffer from alcoholism, okay? And that includes people who don't even really drink. Alcoholism can manifest as, eating disorder or gambling habit or sex addiction or whatever it is, right? And the thing is, the basic that's time. The basic underpinning, right, is that, am I wrapped up in self or am I working for God? Okay. And, that's a choice that I make every day. And then my actions result, therein, right? And, this is an amazing life. I'm grateful to be here, grateful to pass the message. I hope I said some things that, relevant to people. And I don't know if there's time, but I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Thanks very much, Glenn.